The school beauty came between me and Colin, then demanded I tell Colin to meet her in the alley at night. I refused her and said Colin wouldn't go. Later, the school beauty went missing, trafficked by human traffickers. Everyone blamed me, only Colin stood by me. 5 years later, during my difficult childbirth, Colin gave up on saving me. Leaning close, he whispered, "Serves you right." After returning to that year, the first thing I did was tell Colin about the school bell's invitation. The second semester of senior year was a critical time for studying. Vivian came to find me in the classroom of Class 2, Grade 12. "Sonny, could you give this letter to Colin for me? And tell him to meet me in the alley behind the school after evening self-study." I sat at my desk in a daze, staring blankly at the pink letter in front of me. This exact scene had played out in my mind countless times before. Could it be I had been reborn? Just a moment ago, I was lying on the operating table as the doctor announced my difficult childbirth, giving my husband Colin an apologetic look. I was drenched in sweat from the pain, my strength draining away bit by bit. With great effort, I forced my eyes open to look at Colin. Yet what I saw was his unusually cold expression. He said, "Just save the child." My eyes widened in shock, unable to believe what I'd heard. But by then, I could no longer speak. Colin leaned close to my ear and whispered softly, as if murmuring sweet nothings to a lover. "Sonny, how dare you live all these years with a clear conscience after causing Vivian to be kidnapped, with her whereabouts still unknown to this day? Remember, you brought this upon yourself, you deserve every bit of it." His eyes burned with terrifying hatred. I never imagined that my usually gentle and forgiving husband had been holding on to his longing for Vivian all along, even choosing this moment to exact revenge for her. He resents me too, for not giving him that love letter in time back then, for not telling him about Vivian's invitation. If only I could have another chance. "Sonny? Are you deaf?" Vivian looked down at me haughtily, waving the perfumed letter in her hand. "What's wrong, not willing to give the letter to Colin? Are you that afraid I'll steal him away from you?" I snapped back to reality and stared steadily at Vivian before me. I had returned to that day in senior year when Vivian went missing after being abducted. Last time, resentful of Vivian's attempts to come between Colin and me, I refused to deliver this letter to Colin. I also refused to pass along her message, unwilling to let Colin keep their appointment. But that night, Vivian still went to the alley behind the school. There were no surveillance cameras, nor street lights. Someone, no one knows where they came from, found Vivian alone in that alley and forcibly took her away. It wasn't until 3 days later, when the police came to me, that I learned Vivian had gone missing. Because of this, I became the target of condemnation from Vivian's parents and even the entire school. They all believed I was the one who had harmed her. Only Colin firmly stood by my side, telling me he believed it wasn't my fault. Deeply moved, I married him after graduating from college. But what I never expected was that Colin had actually harbored resentment toward me all along. Closing my eyes briefly, I opened them again and smiled as I took that pink envelope. "All right, I'll give it to him." Vivian froze. "You've changed your tune? You'd really help me give it to him?" I nodded, speaking with utmost seriousness and solemnity. "Don't worry, I'll definitely deliver the letter, and I'll even tell him you'll be waiting for him in the alley tonight." She sneered, looking me up and down. "Seems you finally realize how ugly you are, unworthy of Colin. Should have stepped aside sooner instead of clinging to him. Yeah, you and Colin are a match made in heaven. I wish you both eternal happiness and a harmonious union for 100 years. After my string of flattery, Vivian finally seemed satisfied. "All right, remember to have Colin come see me tonight." After seeing Vivian off, I sat back down in my seat, gazing at the familiar yet strangely alien classroom surroundings, feeling my heart finally settle and begin to pound heavily in my chest. Had I truly been reborn? Reborn on this very day that altered the entire course of my life and destiny? "Sonny, Sonny?" A familiar voice suddenly rang in my ears. I turned my head to see a cute girl with a bob cut tilting her head as she looked at me. I remembered her. She was my deskmate, and had once been my best friend, Leah. But after Vivian's incident, she too became one of the people who condemned me. When my desk was splattered with ink, when I was locked in the bathroom all night, when classmates freely hurled insults and bullied me, she requested to change seats, not wanting to sit with a jinx like me. Everyone blamed me, saying that if only I had told Colin, Vivian wouldn't have waited so long for him in that alley, and the tragedy wouldn't have happened. But Leah was right beside me at that time, heard my conversation with Vivian, and knew I'd said Colin wouldn't be coming to tell her not to wait. "Sonny, what's wrong with you? Did they make you stupid with anger?" Leah reached out to touch my head, and I suddenly covered it. She froze. "Sonny?" I was often bullied by these classmates back then and had developed a conditioned reflex. I forced a smile at her, the corners of my mouth twitching. "Leah, what is it?" She leaned in with a gossipy expression. "Aren't you and Colin a couple? The campus belle is making such a scene trying to be the other woman, yet you're just handing Colin over. Aren't you afraid your boyfriend might get stolen?" I recalled Colin's expression of utter hatred before my death in my previous life. No doubt he and Vivian had already been involved long before. I sneered coldly. "If he can be stolen, it just proves he's trash anyway. I should actually thank Vivian for helping me avoid that scumbag sooner." Leah winked and gave me a thumbs up. "That's our Sonny, always so wise." A figure suddenly walked in through the classroom door. The boy was tall and handsome. If not for the youthful innocence still lingering on his face, he would have looked exactly like his future self. He walked straight to my desk and pulled a carton of milk from his pocket. "Here, the one you wanted, I bought it for you." I stiffened, momentarily speechless. That familiar face before me kept reminding me of the despair and agony from my past life. Colin gently ruffled my hair with his large hand. "What's wrong with you? Starving silly?" I took a deep breath. "It's nothing, just feeling a little unwell." He stepped closer with a concerned expression. "What's wrong? Come on, I'll take you to the campus clinic first." His proximity only filled me with disgust. I immediately pushed him away. He frowned, looking puzzled. "Sonny, you." "I'm really fine. Oh, by the way, Vivian was looking for you earlier. You weren't around, so she asked me to give you this." I handed that pink letter to Colin. What this kind of letter represents, no one could fail to understand. Colin's eyes flickered uncertainly. He glanced cautiously at my expression but still took it from me. "Vivian just likes to joke around, I'll give this back to her." "What exactly did she say to you?" I smiled faintly. "She said she'll be waiting for you in the alley behind the school after evening study hall." Colin gave a faint then added with a pale explanation, "Sonny, Vivian and we're just friends." I shrugged. "I know, and I believe you." I was certain Colin had already been in touch with Vivian behind my back. What he didn't know was that whenever he lied, he would start stuttering. Colin and I had been playmates since childhood. Our families were neighbors. My mom and Colin's mom were best friends since their youth, so close that being best friends wasn't enough, they wanted to become in-laws someday. They even arranged a marriage between me and Colin. Fortunately, that plan was eventually dropped. Before high school, Colin was still a short, chubby kid. No one expected that once he entered high school, he'd shoot up like bamboo, growing taller and more handsome, so much so that his classmates crowned him school heartthrob. Many girls developed crushes on him, and I was no exception. Taking advantage of our close connection, I was the first to confess to Colin. He said we were too familiar with each other and turned me down. So I pursued Colin for 2 years, from freshman to senior year, until finally last month, he relented and agreed to date me. Vivian had also transferred to the class next door last month. She was beautiful, came from a wealthy family, and wore exquisite makeup and pretty dresses every day. She stood in stark contrast to someone like me, a bookish nerd who buried herself in studies, looking rather plain. With her looks, Vivian had become the school belle. I never expected Colin and I to last forever, but I didn't anticipate he would start cheating within just a month. The whole school knew we were a couple. During break time, while Colin was off buying milk for me, Vivian actually had the audacity to approach me, his official girlfriend, openly, asking me to pass along a love letter and a message for her. It's hard to say she didn't do it on purpose. But it doesn't matter anymore. These things don't bother me now. Colin does pay too much attention to Vivian. Ever since I told him that Vivian asked him out tonight, I could see him fidgeting all evening study session, glancing at his watch repeatedly from his seat diagonally across. When school finally ended, Colin dashed out without even looking at me. These signs are clear enough, Colin likes Vivian, not me. Leah looked at me with pity in her eyes. Sonny, you've really been betrayed by them. I didn't say anything, just walked out while making a phone call. After a while, I arrived at the fork in the road behind the school. The night was already deep. This was where the last streetlight on this road stood, just one turn would lead into that alley. There were no lights in the alley, and few people ever passed through. I leaned against the streetlight, holding up my phone as if I were making a call. Colin and Vivian should already be inside. I idly counted the time. A few minutes later, 3 shifty-eyed men approached from a distance. When they saw me, their steps faltered for a moment, their eyes scanning me up and down as if sizing me up. I clenched my teeth, my heart pounding in my throat as if it might leap out, my entire body stiff with fear. Struggling to control my trembling, I shouted into the phone, "You bastard! I've been waiting here for several minutes, how much longer are you going to take? They're right behind the school, almost there, right? Hurry up. All these guys are waiting." Seeing those guys still staring at me, I rolled my eyes exaggeratedly and growled in a rough voice, "What the hell are you looking at? Never seen a girl before? Keep staring and I'll have my boys gouge your eyes out. Now scram." They exchanged glances, ignoring my continued curses, and headed into the dark alley. The moment they left, I nearly collapsed, my legs so weak I had to lean against the streetlight for support. This was the best acting performance of my life. Before I could even catch my breath, a faint scream suddenly came from the alley, Vivian's voice. Come to think of it, how could Vivian, a delicate beauty who couldn't hurt a fly, and Colin, who only played basketball between classes, possibly stand a chance against those vicious thugs? In my past life, those mountain-like accusations that crushed me made me mistakenly believe that all the tragedies were my fault. But now, the facts have proven that whether I told Colin or not wouldn't have changed the outcome. The wrongs belonged to those criminals, not me. As if freed from invisible shackles, I felt much lighter in spirit. Just then, a police car pulled up in front of me, and officers rushed out. "Hello, miss, are you the one who reported the incident?" I nodded emphatically. "Yes. They're right down this alley, 3 male suspects, possibly armed. Please be careful." The police rushed into the alley. After a few gunshots, Colin and Vivian were escorted out. Both looked disheveled, with Vivian wrapped in a police jacket, her face full of terror. I sneered inwardly, feeling even more disgusted by them. The 3 men had been in the alley for less than half a minute, they couldn't possibly have done anything to Vivian. So their disheveled state was clearly from sneaking around doing something inappropriate inside. Before they noticed me, I turned to slip away. "Hey, student." The police officer quickly called out to me, "Wait a moment, come back with us to give a statement. We'll take you home afterward." I turned around awkwardly, only to see the mix of surprise and shame on Colin and Vivian's faces. Thankfully, I had prepared an excuse in advance. I've seen those 3 men loitering near the alley for a while now, and when I heard Colin and Vivian were planning to go into the alley at night, to hang out, I got worried something might happen, so I called the police. "You did the right thing, student," the officer nodded approvingly. "What's your name, and which class are you in?" I answered truthfully. "I'll take you home first, it's almost 11 o'clock. The police didn't mention the 3 dead men, let alone explain what had happened in the alley. But in truth, I already knew from my past life. Those 3 men were brothers from a village in the neighboring city. After a dispute with their neighbors, they had murdered all 5 members of the neighbor's family and fled here. Broke and desperate, they scouted around for opportunities. When they spotted the beautiful Vivian in the alley, malicious intent took hold. They abducted her to sell for a high price. This was the information the police managed to extract from them after spending 3 arduous years to finally capture them. But exactly who they sold her to, or where Vivian had been taken, these men knew nothing at all. They only said the buyer wore a black mask, and the transaction took place in the woods, utterly devoid of any leads. Until my death, Vivian was never found. Fortunately, in this second chance at life, I no longer have to bear the guilt of harming Vivian, and she won't be taken by those villains again. I returned home and looked up to see my parents sitting on the sofa watching TV. In my memory, it had been a long time since they'd relaxed like this. Although the police repeatedly clarified that I had nothing to do with the incident, people always preferred to believe baseless but dramatic rumors. Because of me, even our lifelong neighbors began pointing fingers at our family. During that period, my parents not only had to deal with these people but also constantly monitor my precarious mental state. By the time I finally made my way back, they had aged rapidly by more than a dozen years, their hair entirely white, their faces gaunt and withered. Even now, I still can't bring myself to imagine how devastated they must have been in my previous life when they received the news of my death. "Sweetheart, you're back?" My mother noticed me and waved me over. "Why are you so late today? Did you stay at school to finish homework?" Looking at their faces, my heart ached with sorrow. Tears welled up uncontrollably, spilling from my eyes in an unstoppable flood. Mom and Dad rushed over immediately, their expressions grave. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Who bullied you?" I shook my head through tears. "I just missed you both." "They wouldn't believe it, sweetheart, go to bed first. Tomorrow we'll go to school with you." "Don't be afraid, Mom and Dad are here." The couple immediately took out their phones to request leave for the next day. No matter how I tried to explain, they insisted on going to school in person to see for themselves. I sighed and reluctantly thought, fine, let's go. But the corners of my mouth kept curling up. The next day, my parents followed me to the classroom. They didn't find anyone bullying me, but instead ran right into the police officers who came looking for me. "You've raised a remarkable daughter." The police officer personally came to deliver the bravery award to me. The incident involving the 3 brothers had caused quite a stir in the neighboring city, where the police had been searching for them for months. If it weren't for me, these criminals wouldn't have been captured so quickly, and both Colin and Vivian would have met with misfortune. The authorities took this matter very seriously, and even a television crew came to take photos. But after all, I'm still a senior high school student. To avoid affecting my studies, the reporter just asked me a few simple questions, offered some encouragement for my college entrance exams, and then left. My parents, however, were filled with fear after hearing the story. All 3 of them were murderers. How could you be so bold as to confront them? If something had happened to you, how would your parents go on living? I hugged my mother without saying a word. They didn't know that from the moment Vivian approached me, I was already inextricably involved in this matter. If I didn't take the initiative to call the police, I'd still end up reliving the same nightmare as my previous life after their accident. Only by personally ensuring the criminals are brought to justice and confirming Colin and Vivian's safe escape can I truly rest easy. After finally persuading my parents to go home, I returned to my seat to find the entire class looking at me differently. Leah tugged at my sleeve. "Sonny, that was incredible." The surrounding classmates quickly gathered around. "Oh my God, you actually found that serial killer they've been chasing for months in the neighboring city? That sounds just like a superhero. I just heard from the police that you also saved 2 people in the alley. Who were they?" Leah widened her eyes in shock and glanced toward the stiff figure standing diagonally across. "Sonny, the people you saved couldn't be them, could it?" I smiled faintly and raised my index finger to my lips. "Shoo." I knew Leah could never hold her tongue. By noon, the entire school would know that Colin and Vivian were the ones rescued in that alleyway. To ordinary students, this alleyway held no particular significance, just an exceptionally secluded spot. But certain students knew all too well, this was the secret rendezvous where many young couples first tasted forbidden fruit. Aren't Colin and Sunny supposed to be a couple? Why was he there with Vivian? Those two were sneaking around behind Sunny's back and nearly got killed by a murderer, only to be saved by Sunny in the end. Even soap operas wouldn't come up with such ridiculous drama. Homewrecker and scumbag. And to think I used to call them our school's golden couple, disgusting. This time, the targets of the entire school's gossip became Colin and Vivian. At noon after class, I was about to head to the cafeteria for lunch when Colin approached me. Sunny. I turned around, expression cold. What is it, Colin? His eyes suddenly tightened. Sunny, you've really misunderstood my relationship with Vivian. Classmates around us stopped in their tracks, craning their necks to eavesdrop. Colin pressed his lips together. She's just a friend. She told me to meet her in the alley, I didn't think much of it. It's always been you I love. The corner of my lips curled into a mocking smile. Last night, when the police escorted Colin out of that alley, his fly wasn't even zipped up. And this is what he calls a misunderstanding and just friends? In my past life, he even abandoned me during a difficult childbirth for Vivian's sake, watching me die. And now he claims he never liked her? I don't believe it. Yet now, amid the swirling rumors, he's quick to discard Vivian without hesitation, pinning all the blame squarely on her shoulders. Sunny, please forgive me. I promise I'll never talk to Vivian again. Didn't we agree we'd go to university together? Colin looked at me with pleading eyes, his tone actually carrying a hint of supplication. I couldn't understand, why was he doing this? Didn't he love her? Why was Colin so eager to confirm our relationship to everyone, trying to prove his innocence while making Vivian the guilty one? He was so desperate to escape this web of rumors, but I refused to give him what he wanted. Colin, I met his gaze, let's break up. In this life, I've finally made no mistakes. My deeds were featured on television, earning me a bit of fame nationwide. The whole school praised me as a great hero, treating me with exceptional kindness. Neighbors nearby often bring fruits and snacks, urging their children to learn from a hero like me. It's the complete opposite of my past life. There's no insults or bullying from classmates, everyone treats me with goodwill. So wonderful it feels like a dream. As for Vivian, she's now constantly accused by classmates of being a homewrecker. But they only gossip about her behind her back, never going so far as to bully her outright. After all, it's just a matter of moral concern, far lighter than the crimes I was accused of in my previous life. I don't feel the slightest guilt about Vivian's misfortune. She did come between Colin and me, after all. One might even say that if she hadn't insisted on going down that alley, she wouldn't have been in danger to begin with. And I wouldn't have been blamed for it either. Yet she seems convinced that everything is my fault. While I was reviewing my notes, Vivian suddenly burst into the classroom to confront me. Sunny! Was it you telling everyone I'm the other woman? Vivian no longer maintained her usual pretty and polished appearance as she shouted at me in disarray. I set down the pen in my hand and looked at her calmly. I'm not that bored. Her eyes were bloodshot, even carrying a trace of hatred toward me. If not you, then who? Sunny, you're just getting back at me for stealing Colin from you. I shook my head with a smile. You've forgotten, you were the one who came to find me in the classroom, right in front of everyone, asking me to deliver your love letter to Colin. And it was also you who shouted right here, demanding I pass along your message to meet Colin in the alley. What do you mean? Vivian suddenly widened her eyes. Are you saying I brought this upon myself? Isn't that the case? I looked at her with pity. Vivian, you chose to be the other woman. You put yourself in this situation, you can't blame anyone else. The ones who truly deserve condemnation should be those three inhuman murderers. It was Vivian who wanted to go to that alley, and the ones who committed the crime were those villains. Yet in my past life, I was the one who faced more criticism. In reality and online, people exaggerate and even fabricate rumors, painting me as a villain to subject me to moral judgment. I lived in such pain and humiliation, yet I couldn't even explain. I stopped my boyfriend from meeting her because she was the one who interfered in our relationship. After all, Vivian was the victim, she had suffered enough. But today, I've freed Vivian, she's no longer a victim. The label of homewrecker she now bears was entirely of her own making. Facing her, I finally have the confidence to say those words. None of this is my fault. I didn't make her the other woman. In my past life, I didn't send her to that alley either. Yet Vivian refused to acknowledge any responsibility. All she knew was that she'd been insulted, and she desperately needed an outlet for her rage. I was the perfect target. Her face twisted as she advanced toward me. Then a hand intercepted her. Colin had somehow moved from his diagonal seat to stand between us. His face was pale with anger, his gaze icy as he looked at Vivian. Enough. Colin, Vivian glared at him, so even you are on her side now? Colin gritted his teeth, can you stop making a scene? Aren't you embarrassed enough already? He dragged Vivian outside. After the exam, Leah told me that Colin and Vivian had completely fallen out. They were screaming at each other downstairs of the teaching building. Colin called Vivian shameless, a homewrecker who seduced him. Vivian in turn called Colin a scumbag who dared to act but not own up to it. When the test scores were released, the seat diagonally across from me was already empty. Colin and Vivian had transferred schools. The boy I had loved for over a decade had walked out of my life ahead of schedule in this lifetime. Saying I wasn't sad would be a lie, but what I felt more was actually relief. Before their family moved away, Colin's mother brought him to apologize to me. I stepped forward and gave his mom a hug. Auntie, this matter has nothing to do with you. As for Colin, I will never forgive him. Colin had been hanging his head low, but at my words, he suddenly looked up, his eyes rimmed red. I smiled faintly. Who are you putting on this act of devotion for, Colin? Weren't you the one who agreed to pursue me? And yet, weren't you also the one who cheated? Colin stared at me intently. Sonny. I'm sorry. I personally opened the door for him. Hurry up and leave. Let's never see each other again. In my past life, wherever I went, gossip and rumors followed me. My parents were getting old, and I feared they would continue to be affected by me, so I moved out of the family home during college and lived with Colin. After graduation, I completely lost the courage to step outside and could only stay at Colin's place every day. At that time, I couldn't live without him. But now I realize, even without Colin, my life wouldn't change in the slightest. I truly cherish this peaceful existence. In my previous life, my high school grades were excellent. Had it not been for that incident, which severely affected my mental state, I would have had a great chance of getting into University A. Unfortunately, in the end, I only barely managed to get into a mediocre public university. Now that I have a second chance, I hope to fulfill the dream I left unfulfilled. Every day, I immerse myself in studying. After all, it's been a long time since high school, and it took considerable effort to brush up on these subjects again. My recent exam results haven't been ideal. But fortunately, I'm still quite bright, so I pick things up quickly. After the college entrance exams ended, I learned that Colin and Vivian had transferred to the same high school and officially became a couple. When delivering this news, Leah cautiously watched my expression as if worried I'd be upset. I just smiled nonchalantly. They're actually quite well matched. Sonny, aren't you even angry? It was Vivian who came between you back then. How come they get to be happily together now? I never knew Leah could be so indignant. I just want to live my own life well. Who they're with or what they're doing, I don't want to know. From now on, my life belongs only to me. As for those two who carried all my past suffering, I don't even want to hear their names. Hearing Colin's name again was already 5 years later. I graduated smoothly from University A and went abroad to study for 2 years. Just after returning to the country, my friends booked a private room, saying it was a welcome party for me. These were all friends I made during my university days. Apart from the class monitor who got into University A with me, I had practically lost touch with all my high school classmates. Though I clearly understood the differences between these two lives, I could never forgive the bullying and mistreatment from my classmates in my previous life. I won't choose to seek revenge on them. But neither can I pretend those things never happened. My high school classmates had invited me to reunions several times, but I always avoided them using busyness as an excuse. Gradually, they stopped inviting me. At this welcome party, the class monitor was also present. Only he sat at the very edge, excluded from the crowd. The social circles in university are actually the most hierarchical. If you have talent, ability, and status, then you can position yourself at the very center of the circle. The class leader tried to push his way into the center of the crowd. If he couldn't make it on his own, he'd have to find a way to latch onto someone else. My friends chatted with me for a bit before scattering. Just then, the class leader squeezed his way in, oozing flattery. "Sonny, I never expected you to become so amazing after all these years." Before I could even respond, he went on, "Hey, do you remember Colin and Vivian? That scumbag ex-boyfriend and the homewrecker of yours? They're living miserably now." I cut him off, "I don't want to hear it." But my friends were clearly the type who loved to stir up trouble. The moment they heard it was about my ex-boyfriend, they immediately seized the opportunity and urged our class monitor to continue. Thus, I couldn't help but learn about Colin and the others' current situation. It turned out that in this lifetime, after entering university, Vivian's family had gone bankrupt. Colin and Vivian, just like me in my previous life, had only managed to get into an ordinary second-tier college. Hearing this, I found it utterly unbelievable. Colin's grades had always been among the top. He always ranked first in the entire school, and no matter how hard I tried as the perpetual runner-up, I could never surpass him. When he was about to transfer schools a few years ago, both his homeroom teacher and the grade director pleaded with him repeatedly, unwilling to let go of the student who was almost certain to become the city's top scorer. When I saw that he wasn't the top scorer in the city's college entrance exams, I thought he had indeed been slightly affected, but I never imagined it would come to the point where he could only attend an ordinary second-tier university. After all, he was Colin. In my past life, he had become the city's top scorer, with prestigious universities competing to recruit him. He went to the finance department of University A, excelling so brilliantly that he became a campus celebrity even in such a prestigious institution. By his junior year, his outstanding performance had earned him the admiration of a prominent figure. The magnate provided him with funding, and Colin, along with like-minded partners, started a business that earned millions in just its second year. Even though I was at another university at the time, I often overheard classmates raving about Colin. I idolized him for my entire life. Even in this second chance at life, though I didn't see him at University A, I still assumed he was out there crafting his own legend. However, the class monitor told me that Colin went to a second-rate university and after graduation became a lowly clerk at a small company, muddling through several years without any achievements. That disillusionment and shock left me rooted to the spot, unable to react for the longest time. The class monitor continued talking nonchalantly. "Colin and Vivian have been on again off again these past few years. Vivian has been completely dependent on Colin for support, her family went bankrupt and cut her off financially. A spoiled rich girl like Vivian, used to extravagant spending, reportedly quarreled with Colin all the time." What happened later? Later on, I heard from my high school classmate Leah that Vivian used Colin's savings for cosmetic surgery. When Colin found out, he dumped her. Our friends couldn't help but clap. Serves her right. Thank goodness our Sonny broke up with that scumbag. Stepping out of the private room, I barely walked a few steps before bumping into someone. "Sorry." The deep voice from across was all too familiar. I looked up and sure enough, it was him. Colin. Dressed in waiter's attire, yet it did nothing to diminish his striking handsomeness. 5 years had passed, yet apart from appearing more mature, he didn't seem to have changed much. Seeing me, he was clearly stunned too. "Sonny?" Friends noticed I'd stopped walking and urged me. "What's up, Sunny? Weren't we going for drinks?" The class monitor quickly pulled the group along. "No problem, no problem. Sunny, you two chat, we'll head to the venue first and wait for you. Take your time, no rush." I sighed and turned to leave, but Colin grabbed my wrist. "Sunny, can we talk?" His pleading gaze met mine. "Just a few minutes. I won't take up too much of your time." I agreed and followed him to a corner. "What did you want to talk about?" Colin lowered his head, his eyes fixed intently on me. "I'm working part-time at this shop." "And you, how have you been all these years?" "That's good. As long as you're doing well, that's enough. Is there anything else? If not, I should get going." "Sunny." He suddenly stepped forward and hugged me. "I've always loved you. Would you still be willing to accept me?" I broke free from his embrace and slapped him directly across the face. "Sexually harassing a guest, Colin, I'll report you to your boss." I turned and walked away without ever looking back. I always believed Colin loved Vivian. We started dating in our senior year of high school, got married after college graduation, and stayed together for 7 full years until I got pregnant. If he hadn't been utterly infatuated with Vivian, I couldn't understand why he would have left me to die during my difficult childbirth. Yet in this lifetime after breaking up with Colin, he never showed that same devotion to Vivian. This used to confuse me greatly. But now I understand. From beginning to end, what he truly loved wasn't me or Vivian, it was the obsession of unrequited desire, a false illusion. That's why in our previous life he couldn't see me standing right beside him, while loving the missing Vivian so desperately he practically wished me dead. Yet in this lifetime, after our breakup, he suddenly can't stop thinking about me. Realizing this only makes me sick to my stomach. But Colin clearly isn't willing to let me go. Somehow he obtained my newly changed social media account and sent a friend request. His first message read, "Long time no see. I'll prove to you how much I truly love you." I immediately blocked and deleted him. A few days later, my mentor recommended me to work as a manager at a company in City B. On my first day at work, while waiting for the elevator downstairs, I suddenly heard someone calling me from behind. "Sunny? You actually work here too?" I frowned deeply and turned around to see Colin looking at me with a face full of surprise. "You came here because—" I mercilessly poured cold water on him. "Don't flatter yourself. If I'd known you were here, I wouldn't have come. This company is one of the top-tier corporations in City B. My mentor recommended me here precisely because they highly valued my abilities. I can't betray my mentor's trust just because of someone as insignificant as Colin. So I can't resign." But Colin only grew bolder in his pursuit of me. Even after being reprimanded by management, he paid no heed and even started sending roses to my office every single day. Utterly exasperated, I finally re-added his contact. Colin exclaimed, "Sunny, you're finally willing to talk to me again." I replied, "Colin, I already have a boyfriend." Colin didn't believe I had a boyfriend. In my social circle, I had never mentioned my boyfriend's existence to anyone. He thought this was just an excuse to reject him, so he became even more persistent, trying to win me over with sheer determination. The more I refused, the more obsessed he became. I could sense that he wasn't pursuing someone with independent thoughts and feelings, he was chasing a past fantasy, something he had always longed for but could never attain. He was challenging, taking risks, as if playing a level-clearing game where I was the final boss. Every day after work, I rushed out in a hurry, fearing I might run into Colin. His so-called pursuit was exhausting to deal with. As I stepped out of the company gate, a tall figure caught my eye. It was already autumn, and the person wore a trench coat, slender yet upright, standing out in the crowd. My eyes lit up as I threw myself into his arms. "Peyton! What are you doing here?" Peyton smiled gently and pulled me into his arms. "Your mother told me your first love wants to steal you away from me. So I had to hurry back and assert my claim." "My mom?" I frowned. Colin had actually gone as far as bothering my mother just to pursue me. Peyton noticed my mood and patted my head. Alright, don't think about those irrelevant people anymore. Let's go home, your parents are already waiting for us there. He took my hand and started leading me toward the parking lot. Sonny. Colin stood behind us holding a massive bouquet of roses, his expression wounded. He shouted at me angrily, "Who is he?" I showed him our intertwined hands. "Let me formally introduce you, this is my boyfriend, Peyton." Colin gritted his teeth, shaking his head in denial. "I don't believe it. He's just an actor you hired to trick me, right?" I was about to say more when Peyton suddenly wrapped his arm around my waist and planted a kiss on my lips. "Stay away from my girlfriend." Peyton took me back home. My parents had already prepared dinner and were waiting for us. When they saw Peyton, their eyes nearly disappeared into smiles. "Peyton, please sit. We're so grateful for how well you took care of Sonny abroad. When are you two planning to get married? Have you picked a date yet?" Peyton turned to me with a helpless look, and I couldn't help but chuckle, shrugging helplessly. My parents were very pleased with Peyton. 2 years ago, I chose to study abroad alone, and my family didn't support my decision. I went ahead stubbornly, and the moment I arrived overseas, I got lost. Foreign navigation apps aren't user-friendly, so I had to rely on maps. But my sense of direction is terrible, and following the map only led me further astray. Peyton appeared right at that moment. It's fair to say that without him, my study abroad journey wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Soon, Peyton and I became lovers. We supported each other through 2 years in a foreign land. I only told my parents about Peyton's existence, not yet having the chance to formally introduce him to my friends. The year after, when Peyton and I were selecting wedding dresses before our marriage, I ran into Colin at the entrance. By then, he had already resigned from that big company and looked even more down and out. He chased after me and asked, "You're getting married?" I showed him the ring on my finger. "Yes, I won't be sending you an invitation." His eyes dimmed. He gave a self-deprecating smile. "Sonny, I wish you a happy wedding." "Thanks." I muttered perfunctorily and turned to leave. He suddenly said, "I had a dream recently. In it, I married you." I stopped in my tracks and gave him a cold look. "What do you want to say?" Colin turned his face slightly. "I wanted to say, in the dream, I truly loved you." "It was just a dream," I said expressionlessly, ignoring Colin behind me as I pushed open the bridal shop's door. Inside, Peyton opened his arms to me.